Very good afternoon. Welcome to Business Live. It's going to be a busy 30 minutes. We're also expecting to hear from the Prince of Wales in South Africa in the next couple of minutes, and also potentially Donald Trump voting in person in Florida. We'll bring you both of those events as they happen here on Sky News. But first, we are going to stick with the US election because Americans are going to the polls today in what is thought to be a knife edge election, possibly one of the closest in history. And the markets have been, or had been, leaning towards a Donald Trump victory, but betting appears to have shifted in the last couple of days, leading to a weakening of the dollar. So what is going on? Let's go live to Washington and speak to the Financial Times Financial Bureau Chief, in DC. That is James Politi. James, very good afternoon to you. First of all, as we say, millions of Americans had already voted before today. Millions of them are queuing at polling stations as we do so to speak. Let's forget about the politics for a moment. What's the mood within the markets, do you reckon, on this big decision day?
Well, I mean, the stock markets here in the United States are rallying this morning. But I think in general, the expectation on Wall Street in the final stages of the campaign had been originally that Donald Trump was most likely going to win. But in the last few days, as you mentioned earlier, there's been a slight shift back to what essentially is, a prediction of a neck-and-neck race, a tied contest where nobody actually really knows which way it's going to go. There are factors that kind of argue for a victory for Trump, and there are factors that argue for a victory for Harris. And I think the markets are adjusting to the reality that the outcome could go in either direction.
But I assume, James, what the markets will not want is an uncertain, unclear result that could go on for days.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, markets, do not like uncertainty. They do not like, the absence of a clear result. And especially if there's sort of tension, legal tension, or even sort of violence around the certification and the counting of the votes, I think that could be very unsettling.
And just talk us through, James, why you thought that potentially a Trump win that the markets are baked in had led to a strengthening of the dollar. Why was that?
Well, I think potentially it was the result of his plans for kind of sweeping tax cuts, which would have, I think, naturally been inflationary and led to sort of a new turbocharging of growth. And that could have, strengthened the dollar, at least in the short term. So I think that's what the calculation is on that front.
And James, also just looking at the US more broadly, I mean, the surprising thing is it's been through a hell of a lot of political turmoil over the last decade or so. We've had pretty close, divisive elections in 2016, 2020, and we're in the midst of one now. And yet its economy has remained, of course, with the exception of COVID, incredibly robust. Politics in some ways doesn't really seem to have mattered.
No, I think that's right. I mean, the economy throughout all the turmoil, the political turmoil that we've seen during this election year, markets have rallied, the economy has remained strong, it's avoided recession, which is what many forecasted last year. Consumer spending has remained resilient. Of course, inflation spiked. It went very high in 2022, but it's come back down to reasonable levels, close to the Fed's 2% target. So I think the management of the macroeconomy has gone very well. But of course, big risks lie ahead potentially. A lot of volatility could come from the political side. If Trump goes ahead with his sweeping tariffs on many more products and many more countries than he did during his first term, that could create a lot of disruption in the economy and the markets.
And just very finally, James, though, again, just on this kind of bigger picture element, if you like, we're going to get a result, whether it's in a couple of days or not. Is that American recovery going to kind of remain robust? And what's your sense about this country that just, you live there, this sense that it's so divided, that it's split down the middle, and that's not likely to change, is it?
Well, no, it's not likely to change. I think no matter what happens, we're likely to see a very divided country, regardless of the results. I think that it's important to remember that some of the institutions that manage the U.S. economy have been independent and see themselves as independent. The Federal Reserve, for instance, will continue to operate as an independent central bank, no matter what the outcome. The Treasury Department, even under a Trump administration or the Biden administration, remains sort of a hub of the civil service, even though it's a political agency. And I think the sort of hope and expectation is that it remains that way, no matter what happens tonight and going into this week.
It's going to be a fascinating evening. We'll all be tuned in. James Politi live there for us in Washington from the Financial Times. Thank you so much indeed for joining us here on Sky News. And of course, we're waiting for Donald Trump to vote in Florida. That could well happen any time, and we'll bring you that as it does. But let's move back here and to the post office scandal, because Sir Alan Bates has told Sky News that he's yet to receive a reply from the Prime Minister, despite writing to Sir Keir Starmer over a month ago. Giving evidence to a Business and Trade Committee hearing, the Post Office campaigner called for a deadline for compensation to the sub-postmaster victims of the Horizon scandal. Well, let's get more on this. Let's join Adele Robinson, who has been covering this for us on Sky today. Adele, what's Sir Alan Bates had to say?
Well, he's been giving evidence, as you said, before the Select Committee this afternoon and addressing some of the issues, trying to answer the question here today as to why over 3,000, the meeting here heard 3,000 former sub-postmasters and people who worked for the Post Office are still yet to receive financial redress years on from the Post Office scandal. So Alan Bates giving evidence, he said that his claim, which was started over a year ago, is still dragging on. He said that he'd noticed a number of issues, a couple of things around fairness. He said that the goalposts seemed to be continually shifting behind the scenes with regards to the schemes. Guidance and principles, he said, have changed on a number of occasions, and talked as well about bureaucracy bogging down schemes as well. He also spoke to me before the Select Committee appearance, during which he described the letter that he'd sent to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He said that he hadn't yet heard from him in over a month, and that he'd actually sent him a reminder just yesterday. This is what he had to say.
It was over a month ago. I sent him a reminder yesterday. I told him the clock's still ticking. And now 5 months from the end of March deadline, which I'm told is still achievable by other professionals. So let's get on with it. That's all we want. Get on with the job.
Well, we've now heard that Downing Street have said that Sir Keir Starmer has now responded to Sir Alan Bates' letter about compensation, and his official spokesperson has said that it was right that they took the time to consider the issues raised in the letter to the Prime Minister, consider their response, make sure, as they said, it was accurate and substantial, and also that they'd engaged with relevant departments to ensure that the response was as full as possible. They say that response was issued earlier today to Sir Alan, and that the government is committed to getting redress to those affected as quickly as possible, and says that it's doing all that it can to increase the pace of redress across all those schemes, not just Sir Alan's schemes, which is the Group Litigation Order scheme, the GLOW scheme. The spokesperson also added that they don't want to set an arbitrary cut-off date. And remember, Sir Alan earlier in the Select Committee today said that the department hates deadlines, but deadlines were necessary. That deadline he'd set of March 2025 for the government to deliver full and financial redress to victims. The spokesperson for the Downing Street said that they don't want to set an arbitrary cut-off date, which could result in some claimants missing a deadline, but they say, and they don't want to put pressure on claimants to put them off contesting their claim. However, they have said that each postmaster eligible for the GLOW scheme should receive substantial redress by the end of March, and that they're doing all they can to achieve that goal. So should receive substantial redress. Key words there. Didn't say that they definitely will, but that they should. And I'm sure Sir Alan Bates will continue to press them on that and to hold them to account. He himself threatening potential legal action if they don't.
Adele, live for us there in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed, Adele Robinson. Now, Center Parcs has announced plans to open its 7th holiday resort here in the UK. The £500 million development will be the first in Scotland, near the town of Hoyk in the Scottish borders. Let's speak to the man in charge, Colin McKinley. He's the Chief Executive of Center Parcs and joined us now. So the first village, potentially holiday village in Scotland. Very exciting news, but it's still at the planning application stage, is that right?
Yes, that's right. So a very exciting day to announce our proposals to build a 7th Center Parcs village here in the Scottish borders, which would give us the opportunity to extend our reach into Scotland with a portfolio of villages which many people will be aware of are largely full. So we're very, very sure that there's unmet demand for another village here.
And you say full. How is the business doing elsewhere in the UK?
Yeah, we're very pleased with our performance. We have very strong occupancy rates. We have very high guest satisfaction scores. And importantly for us, our level of repeat business is still as high as ever. So lots of very happy guests enjoying our products.
Indeed. How seasonal, though, is Center Parcs? I mean, I think lots of viewers who have been or haven't been would associate it primarily with kids' family holidays, particularly during the summer and during half term as well. How sustainable is the business the rest of the year round, particularly, it must be said, in the bleak of winter?
Well, we are full every single day of the year. We're open 365 days in the year. And the nature of our product is one that the weather really can't spoil. We've got indoor activities, outdoor activities, a great location in the forest. We have great activities even at Christmas for young children, and activities for old children and broader families across the whole course of the year.
In saying that, I mean, a lot of people are still concerned about cost, aren't they, Colin? And let's be honest about this. A couple of days, a weekend, a week in Center Parcs, it is not cheap. How difficult or how much have you tried to keep those kind of costs under control?
Well, like every business, we want to deliver what we do very efficiently. But the fact is that we have a huge number of people coming to enjoy Center Parcs. We are full every single day, very high level of repeat business, and we're delivering our highest ever guest satisfaction scores in our 37-year history here. So we're really pleased with our performance. We're not complacent at all. I think the announcement today in the Scottish borders can be a game changer for Center Parcs, and importantly, it can be a game changer for the borders and Scotland.
I talked earlier on, didn't I, about Center Parcs being associated with families, half-term, summer holidays. Who else does? We're going to just pause there, Colin. We're going to go to the US, where.
Oh. Yes, thank you very much indeed. So Donald Trump is arriving at the Count at West Palm Beach, Florida. Donald Trump moving from his Mar-a-Lago estate, obviously, alongside his wife, Melania. Looks like he's got his MAGA hat on, clearly. Let's see if he has something to say.
Well, I hear, I don't know, the people you mean? Numbers of people? A lot of people. They'll be at the convention center at Mar-a-Lago. We have a lot of people. I've just been very honored to find out that the lines are long, and the conservative lines, the Republican lines, are very long. We got back pretty late last night, and it was an honor. It was a great honor. We had 4 incredible rallies and left Michigan late at night. Many of you were with us. And I hear we're doing very well. I hear we're doing very well.
Voted against the abortion measure in the supporting Florida's 6 weeks.
We did a great job in that. We brought it back to the states, as you know. I believe in exceptions, as Ronald Reagan did. And we did a great job. We did something that they've wanted to do for 52 years. Yes, please.
Mr. President, you talk a lot about if you win, there are tens of millions of Harris supporters who will be upset. What would your plan be to reach out to those people, bring them in? What would your message be?
Well, it'll be just that. We want to bring everybody in. We want to be very inclusive, and we will be very inclusive. We have a great country, but we have a country that's in trouble. It's in big trouble in many ways, and we have to straighten it out. We have crime is through the roof. We have people pouring through our borders that are not exactly perfect. They come out of prisons. 13,000 people convicted of murder. We don't need this in our country. We have enough difficulty. We don't need that. So I think people saw that. And it just seems that the conservatives are voting very powerfully.
President Trump, looking back,
Just finish it up. Go ahead.
how are you feeling? Nervous, anxious,
No, I feel very confident. I have felt. You know, we went in with a very big lead today, and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. So we'll see how it turns out. But it seems that they have really shown up in force. I just got a call from Dan Patrick in Texas. He said they've never seen anything like it. It's been very good.
looking back, is there anything you would do differently about your campaign? Do you have anything you regret about how you ran this campaign?
Look, regrets. You always have regrets. I can't think of any, to be honest, to use her expression. I can't think of any. Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. We did great in the first one. We did much better in the second one, but something happened. And this was the best. I would say this was the best campaign we ran.
President Trump, do you accept the possibility that you and Vice President Harris both might not get to 270 electoral votes by the end of tonight?
It should never happen. A thing like that should never happen. This election should be over. They spend all this money on machines. And frankly, if they'd use paper ballots, it would be over by 10 o'clock. And by the way, the paper ballots would cost 8%. It would be 8% of the cost. If they would use paper ballots, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and one-day voting, it would all be over by 10 o'clock in the evening. It's crazy. They use these very expensive computers, and I'm hearing in Pennsylvania they won't have an answer till 2 or 3 days from now. I think it's an absolute outrage if that's the case. Now, maybe it'll be later, but it's paper ballots in France. They went paper ballots because the mail-in was not working. It was corrupt. And in France, they went paper ballots. And at 10 o'clock in the evening, they had 37 million votes counted and done. They had a winner, they had a loser. And in this country, I mean, I'm just hearing that in certain states, it's going to be a long time, and it won't even be close. It won't even be that close. They say, I'm going to win the state, but it's going to take a long time to certify it.
Could you see a world where you don't declare victory tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the same things that you're hearing. I'm hearing states where I'm up by a lot, but they won't have a final number for a long time.
What are your plans for tonight in terms of watching the results and so forth?
So we're going to have a very special group of people, many of whom you know, and they'll be at Mar-a-Lago. In addition, we'll have 4,000 or 5,000 people at the convention center. On the assumption I win, I mean, I don't know if something else happens. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of declaring victory, but if in normal times I would go over to the convention center, let's say at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something, but I just don't know. It looks like we have a very substantial lead. It looks like we have many more Republicans voting today than Democrats. So if you have a lead and we have a bigger vote, that means you're doing very well, but they have to call a winner. They should. And they should call a winner, yes. Just stop talking about that. Go ahead. Oh, I don't know. I was honored to get Joe Rogan last night. I mean, Joe Rogan's a big deal. He's a very respected person. And I must tell you, Megyn was fantastic. She got up and said some things that were really pretty amazing. But before that, I just think we ran a good campaign. I had good policy. We want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. You know, we want strong borders, and We want people to come in. We want to be totally inclusive, but they have to come in. I think that was a big issue. To me, that was the biggest issue. I may be wrong. A lot of people said inflation. Inflation's a disaster, but I think it's a second issue. I think the first is the border. We can't allow criminals to be put back into our country or to be put into our country. So you have 13,000 plus murderers allowed to roam in our country. Not going to be allowed. They have to go. You have drug dealers. You have terrorists. You have a tremendous amount of people that should not be in our country, and we need strong borders in this country. And I think people are voting. And I think it's personally, I think it's the number one issue. We'll see how it pans out, but I think it's the number one issue. I don't have to tell them that. I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence. Unlike your question, you believe in violence. Go ahead.
Where will you be looking early to see if you're having a good night or not? What's your goal?
Well, I think I'll be at Mar-a-Lago for the most part. We have a lot of political professionals. I'm going over now with Melania, who I'm very proud of. She's got the #1 bestseller. Can you believe that? He can believe it. But so we're very proud of the job she's done with that. Her book is #1. But we're going to go over to the office in West Palm, and we're going to say hello to the workers. They've worked very hard.
Will Georgia kind of be your first indication of whether it's going to be a good
I think so. I mean, I hear we're doing very well there in Georgia. I hear we're doing very well. I hear we're doing very well everywhere. Now, I may regret that statement, but I'm hearing that we're doing very well everywhere. Would you go louder?
Have you and your campaign prepared speeches for tonight in case anything news or
No, I haven't prepared a speech. No, I did speeches last night, all day long, all night long. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we left, and we did a lot of speeches. You can probably tell.
But have they prepared both cases or not?
No, I don't have to do that. I'm not a Democrat. I'm able to make a speech on pretty quick notice. If I win, I know what I'm going to say, and I don't even want to think about the losing part. I would like to tell all of the people that are online to stay online. We have tremendous Republican lines, and I've been asked actually to say it. It takes a while. I'd like to just make the statement that I'd like the Republicans to stay online. Democrats, if they'd like, they can leave. But I'd like the Republicans to stay online.
Sir, any additional pressure today, given criminal cases against you that would proceed to be lost or go away from one?
I have no pressure whatsoever. I'm winning big cases. Those cases are all being won. The biggest case was the Florida case, and it's been won. I appreciate your nice question.
Sir, you and Mrs. Trump have been doing
No
this
pressure whatsoever.
for 9 years. Regardless of what happens tonight, is this your last campaign? Are you done after this?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I would think so.
How do you feel about it?
Sad, and very fulfilled. I think we're going to have a very big victory today.
Mrs. Trump, how are you feeling?
Very good, thank you. Thank you.
If you win, sir, if you win, do you have a plan in place to start naming staff and cabinet officers?
We have already a transition team, but I don't like talking about that until I find out how we do. I mean,
Sort of threats from Iran and sort of assassination attempts sort of shake your thinking on stuff, right?
well, it doesn't. Look, we're not looking to do damage to Iran, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. That's so. My terms are very easy. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I'd like them to be a very successful country, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Does it change the way you live? All the threats.
Well, I think Secret Service has been a little bit tougher, to put it mildly. I see more machine guns than I've ever seen in my life. We're surrounded by, I feel very confident with Secret Service. I think they've stepped up. Look, for a long time, they didn't give us the help. They didn't give us the assets, as they say, the manpower, woman power. They didn't give it to us. And we'd have rallies. You saw the rallies, 50, 60,000 people. And I'd have less people than Joe Biden, who had 5 people show up. and I'd have 55,000 people show up, and I had fewer people than him. So they should have done a much better job. And frankly, the president should make a very strong statement to the outside world, because
How are you feeling about your team as we head into the last day?
I think my team is incredible. Look, they say it's the best run campaign they've seen. Some people said it's the best run campaign they've ever seen. But in order to make that stick, you have to win.
How do you feel compared to your past campaigns? Are you more confident now than you were about your team than you were in the last two races?
My team, I'm very confident in. Many of them are the same players. As you know, Susie, a lot of the people are the same players. They've been very good.
Mr. President, Oprah said at Harris's rally last night, quote, "If we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible we won't be able to count the ballot again."
Well, I think it's ridiculous. You know, Oprah, I was on her last show, or one of her last shows, and they picked the biggest people and all of that, and made a big deal. And I'm disappointed. I think Oprah's become a major divider in our country, and I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself. And you know who else should be ashamed? Fox, because I've seen Oprah on Fox about 50 times making the same statement, and I think it's a disgrace what Fox does, because everyone thinks Fox is so pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump at all. They've put Oprah on all morning long. That's all I see is Oprah. And, you know, I knew Oprah very well. She's been at Mar-a-Lago many times. Roger King had his funeral. That's the head of King World, which was Oprah's mentor. And Oprah chose the location. She said, Mar-a-Lago is the most beautiful place. Would it be possible to have Roger's funeral at Mar-a-Lago in the ballroom? We did it. The only time I've ever had a funeral there. And I think Oprah should be ashamed of herself to say that. She should be ashamed. She knows me. She wanted to run with me as the vice president. She was going to be the vice president. She wrote me a letter. It's in the book. And now she goes and makes statements like that. She's a divider. And Barack Hussein Obama is a divider, too.
There are people who are concerned that you didn't concede the election in 2020 when you lost. They're concerned that if you lost this election, you wouldn't concede again. What do you say to those people?
I think they're crazy. If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it. And I think so far, I think it's been fair. I think there's been a lot of court cases. Both sides are lawyered up. Thousands of lawyers are involved, you know, thousands, can you imagine? And part of that is because we have too complicated a process. If we had a piece of paper, watermarked, you know that paper is more sophisticated now than computers. It's watermarked paper. It's unbelievable what happens with it. There's nothing you can do to cheat. And it costs you practically nothing to run. Think of it. We spend hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on these campaigns. You could do it for 8% of the cost and have accuracy, and we wouldn't have to be worried about when is Pennsylvania going to announce. It's really a shame.
Last question.
Last week, Howard Lutnick said that RFK would not be engaging with the secretary. Does he speak for you?
Well, he knows exactly what, but that's only based on what RFK told. I don't think RFK wanted that. You're talking about Health and Human Services. Let me tell you, he's a great guy, RFK, and he's going to do pretty much what he wants as far as I'm concerned. He wants health for women, for men, for children, and I happen to agree with a lot of the things he says. The one thing I told him, and I've told you in speeches for the last 2 weeks, we got to keep him away from the liquid gold, because the liquid gold, we have more than any of it. It's called oil and gas. That one I'm going to handle.
But in your cabinet,
Well, I'd be honored to have him. Now, I haven't spoken to Howard about that, but look, if you think of it, he came in third, you know, in running for president, right? He ran a very good race. He had obstacles. The Democrats just really unfairly put obstacles up, and hence Kennedy left the Democrat Party for the Republicans. Now, he's a very smart guy. He's a very caring guy. He's very popular, too. We get up and introduce him. The place goes wild. No, we love having him. And you know who else we love having? Elon. He's been great. And everybody, look, everybody. Getting Joe Rogan last night and Megyn Kelly. We just have, this is very inclusive. This is a movement. This is the greatest political movement in the history of our country. And even you people, and some of you are fair sometimes, but it's the greatest movement in the history of our country. And I've made that statement 1,000 times. It has never been challenged. It is the greatest movement, and we're going to make America great again. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. This way. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Come on. Come on, Jack. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. How about you?
It is 5 o'clock. I am Anna Botting. This is the NewsHour live from Washington as America heads to the polls, including, as you saw there, Donald Trump. It is a historic presidential election which remains too close to call between Trump and Harris. Well, in the past few minutes, Donald Trump has been speaking to reporters as he voted in Palm Beach in Florida.
No, I feel very confident. I have felt. You know, we went in with a very big lead today, and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force.